So think about it this way. We know that shamans in different countries, different regions, for thousands of years, thousands if not millions of shamans, talked about their experiences on psychedelics with some kind of gods, some kind of demons, some kind of spirits, some kind of extraterrestrial beings. So we know that we have something called the third eye that is located in the center of the brain, where we have the pineal gland, and in a way it's like your psychic center that allows you to communicate telepathically with other realities, other beings, right? Hey, this is Mike Sigula from TrueTheory.com and welcome to another episode of True Spirituality. So, True Spirituality is my series where I talk about metaphysics, esoteric ideas and teachings, mysticism, shamanism, consciousness, spirituality, psychedelics, star seeds, a little bit of everything. So if you like these types of topics, welcome. If you are new here, please subscribe. And have a look at previous episodes as well, because we have something like 90 episodes already. So quite a lot of content. And today we're going to talk about psychedelics and some of the beings that psychonauts encounter during their psychedelic journeys. And we're going to try to answer the question if these beings are real or are they just hallucinations? But before we can start, just quick announcement. So happy new year. And I know a lot of people very often decide to make improvements in their lives, especially from the beginning of the new year. And if you are one of those people, why not do an online course that helps you to transform your life? So my online course called Exit the Matrix is currently available at half price still, and this is an online course with over 30 modules, guided meditation, different exercises, and this course focuses on many different aspects of our lives, things like career, relationships, happiness, etc. So it's a comprehensive course that helps people to transform their lives and help them to figure out what is blocking them in reaching their goals. And at the moment you can get it for something like $60 still, which is a half price if you go for the basic version. So if you're interested, have a look at truetheory.com/academy and use the coupon code Black Friday together at the checkout, and you get the access to the course. And the meditation is something a lot of people enjoy, and it's probably worth something like $50-60. So this is an amazing offer, and why not start a new year with some serious homework? So truetheory.com/academy. Use the coupon code Black Friday together at the checkout and enjoy the course. So one of the common questions when it gets to psychedelics and encounters with some kind of extraterrestrial beings or entities, which is pretty common by the way on psychedelics, is that are these beings real or is it just some kind of hallucination, right? And of course, most people who never tried psychedelics or never had these types of experiences will laugh even at these questions and will say, of course, this is just hallucinations. You're taking drugs, right? So you will see all sorts of crazy, bizarre things, right? That's what a lot of people think. But if you actually ask people who had these types of experiences, many of them will say that these experiences seem very real. Actually, there was a survey done where something like 2,000 people were examined who had some kind of experiences on DMT with alien beings and some kind of extraterrestrial beings, and 3/4 of these people said that these experiences seemed very real. They really felt like they had encounters with these beings. The reason why I'm talking about this topic today is because I had these types of experiences myself, and I feel like I understand what's going on in these states. So I will give you my own perspective. And if you're a skeptic, please have an open mind and at least listen to what we have to say here, because maybe you will learn something interesting. The worst thing anyone can do who is skeptical about these types of topics is just to dismiss and ridicule such claims without even trying to understand them, because it seems to be the case with a lot of people these days. So think about it this way. We know that shamans in different countries, different regions, for thousands of years, thousands if not millions of shamans, talked about their experiences on psychedelics with some kind of gods, some kind of demons, some kind of spirits, some kind of extraterrestrial beings. There are all these claims from shamanism about learning from these entities or having some negative experiences or positive experiences, right? So we know that this idea is not anything new. We know that there are these claims for eons with countless accounts that there is something to it, that these things are real. You know, people like Terence McKenna, who is one of the most known psychonauts in modern era, he talked about his experiences. He thought these beings are very real. He would talk about mechanical elves, for example. I'm not sure, I don't remember the details, but I think he had these experiences sometimes even with his brother, where both of them would see the same types of beings in the same session. For example, someone I know, Ben Joseph Stewart, who is considered a pretty big authority on psychedelics currently. He hosts a show called Psychedelica on Gaia. He said that on an ayahuasca session, he saw a face of his daughter before she was born, before he even knew how she gonna look like. I heard from someone else that on psychedelics, this person had an encounter with a spirit of his daughter before she was born. So it was like this kind of experience where, you know, the future child would come in a spirit form and introduce themselves to the parent, and then whatever, a couple of months or a year later or something, this guy had a child, and that was who he communicated with, right? So people like Daniel Pinchbeck, for example, which is also someone I interviewed for my podcast, he has been experimenting with psychedelics for something like 3 decades or a very long time. He said many times that some of the experiences he had were very, very difficult to explain in any kind of conventional scientific materialistic way. Sometimes the encounters he had with these negative beings, for example, would follow him once he was out of the session and in this world. And I had these types of experiences myself. Let me actually read you something from Daniel Pinchbeck about one of his experiences. One of the entities we encountered in the DPT visions seemed to stay with me for several weeks. It appeared in my dreams every night, often as a sinister bearded man in a red velvet suit, night after night. Eventually, a friend helped me to reassimilate these raucous energies through a ritual, yet for me nothing was ever quite the same after that. You know, sometimes I had these experiences with different beings, and sometimes very negative. One time I had an experience with a very, 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 very negative being. And it tried to possess me, tried to take me over during my session. I managed to protect myself because I understood the techniques and methods. But what happened after the session, well, while I was back in the physical, over the next couple of months, I would have this being appear in the dreams. I would have it appear in the different forms. So to me, you know, you gotta watch out for these things, because what you are dealing with over there, and you have positive and negative beings there, can sometimes kind of pour into this life here. And actually, I made this video recently about my encounter with this female extraterrestrial during one of my sessions with mushrooms. And for around 3 hours, she was communicating with me and showing me all sorts of things and talking back and forth. And I explained what happened at the end of the session, which for me was an evidence that this wasn't a hallucination. So you might want to watch the video, but basically what happened was that at the end of the session, I was with my cousin, you know, in the mountains in summer, and he got very dehydrated. And I drank all the water during the session because I was blown away with my visions and my downloads, that I did not pay attention to what he was doing. So I'd just grab a bottle of water, have a sip, throw it on the grass, and keep communicating. And 4 hours into the session, psychedelics are fading, and we're about to start walking down the hill, which was like, whatever it was, like 40 minutes walk back to the hotel, something like that. And he says, my cousin says, you know, I'm feeling weak. I think you gotta have to leave me here and go get some water, because he was completely dehydrated, it's kind of fading. And the moment he said that, I straight away get download, like, you know, like a vision. The moment he just said it, boom. Remember about the dream 2 days before, 3 days before. So 3 days before the session, I had this dream where I was shown the outcome of the session, which was exactly that. So in the dream before the ceremony, like 2-3 days before the ceremony, I was shown that I'm gonna go with my cousin, we're gonna split, and we're gonna get lost. He didn't come back to the hotel. And I didn't know anything about what's gonna happen in the session. I didn't even know where I gonna do. Everything was kind of like, I would pick the hotel, I would pick this mountain, we're gonna go here, blah, blah. And at the end of the session, where he said he's feeling weak and I'm gonna have to leave him, I received this download that I was warned about it 2-3 days before. How come you can say this is a hallucination if I already knew what's gonna happen before it's even started, before we even had the session? So I was warned 2-3 days before the session that the session is gonna end up that they're probably gonna drink all the water, he's gonna get weak, dehydrated, and then we're gonna decide to split, and that would eventually cause him to get lost in the forest. So think about that. Think about it. You cannot explain it scientifically. You cannot be rational about it, because this is not rational. This is what's happening in these sessions. I suggest to have a look at the other video to get the whole story. But let me tell you my theory about it, because a lot of people ask these questions: are these beings real or not? There is speculation that sometimes we have these archetypes in history of maybe a demon is an archetype, right? And maybe you're gonna encounter such being because it's just an archetype in collective unconscious or something like that. Because very often people talk about similar types of beings, like elves or like reptilian or like these gray types with big eyes, whatever, right? So many people might think, okay, maybe there is this archetype because someone brought it up somewhere in folklore, in myths, whatever. And then, you are familiar with that, so your mind projects that, right? For example, this is one of the arguments of skeptics. What if the being's gonna tell you what's gonna happen tomorrow and it happens? Then it's pretty difficult to talk about this as just an archetype. What if you never saw anything similar? I remember one guy telling me about some encounter on psychedelics about some kind of negative deity, whatever. And then he started researching that online, and he found out that there is this being existed somewhere in mythology or something like that. And he never even heard or read about it before. So maybe it's quite the opposite. Maybe these myths and these archetypes, they're not just myths, they were real, and these people, through different experiences, understood them, and that's why they started talking about them. Maybe it's the other way around. But I can tell you what I think about it, honestly, what I think is happening. So my view is that, yes, most of this stuff is very real, but sometimes you might have visions, sometimes you might have actual experiences, and sometimes you might be reviewing maybe a past life or something like that. So I think there are different options here, right? So we know that we have something called the third eye, and check out my video on the third eye. And this is known for eons, all the cultures talked about it, blah, blah, blah. It's apparently a mechanism of communication with these other worlds. It is located in the center of the brain, where we have the pineal gland. And in a way, it's like your psychic center that allows you to communicate telepathically with other realities, other beings, right? And the way it works is a little bit like an interface. So let's say if you have an entity or a being that occupies a different dimension, different frequency, they can send you downloads, they can send you visions, and you can send these beings visions. And what happens with psychedelics is that your level of consciousness is amplified, and this sometimes allows you to have the veil between this frequency here and their frequency is thinner. That's why there can be communication, for example. There are many other interesting theories about it. For example, that the DMT actually, the chemical that is used for these types of experiences, especially in ayahuasca, that the DMT, we have DMT in our bodies. So our bodies produce DMT naturally, same way like serotonin, dopamine, etc. And there is a theory that, for example, all these organisms produce certain levels of DMT, so we tune into this realm, right? Once the DMT levels increase, you can tune into a different realm, because these realms coexist, but your senses are tuned into one frequency because of the levels of DMT in your body, right? Which is indigenous. The levels are kept at certain level for most organisms. And once it goes up, you start seeing what's beyond the veil. Your senses are expanding. And I remember reading somewhere years ago, I think it was a research from Stanislav Grof, the psychiatrist from Czech. And he is one of those big names about the research in LSD. And they talked about people who would have these experiences on the LSD where they would get into their past lives, right? And sometimes they wouldn't be even human. Sometimes, like, there was a woman who claimed to be some kind of reptile, whatever it was. Like, she said that, certain features and colors on a male version of that she would find attractive, right? Or there would be someone who claimed to be a star, whatever it was, right? What they say is that apparently these states would allow these people to get into different past lives where they could experience what it was like to be something completely different, and sometimes not even human. If you know that reality is just consciousness, right? Everything is consciousness, and everything has some level of consciousness. That actually makes sense, that maybe in one of your past lives you were a star, or maybe you were some kind of reptile, lizard, whatever. And funny enough, I had these experiences where I would jump into these lifetimes and I would see reality from a completely different perspective. Sometimes, my senses would be so different that I would feel like I'm some kind of insectoid, whatever, or other type of species or other type of being. And I would look through the eyes of that being and feel the personality and some of the characteristics and traits of that being. And, I met other people who had these types of experiences with mushrooms, for example. So my view is that a lot of the stuff is very real, and what it happens really is just allows you to tap into either these memories, these past life memories, or have real encounters with some of these beings. And finally, I want to say that remember that it doesn't mean that you're going to do some psychedelics, you're going to have these experiences, because we are all different and they depend on many different factors. And also, if you're interested in this stuff, be careful, because unfortunately there are a lot of negative experiences and negative entities as well. And if you don't know what you're doing, this can be dangerous. So I know something about it, because I had some really negative experiences and encounters, very bad ones. Anyway, this is all I want to say here. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. Follow me on Instagram. It's Mike Segula on Instagram. And if this makes sense or it's interesting, please give it a like. Let me know what you think about it in the comments and share it with other people on social media. And thank you for checking another episode of True Spirituality. Until next time.